And then, like, how do you get your showers too?
So originally, I would just go to sinks and like freshen up as much as I could. The famous sink shower. Um, yeah, I did that for a while.
Wow.
The hardest place was after a while you couldn't keep going to the same place because they knew what you're doing. They're like, "Hey, get out of here, you bum!" So the friendliest place for homeless people is a public library. It is the only place in America where you can be and you're not expected to pay anything, and you can sit down. Like, you can't sit down in parks because police will kick you out. Or you'll look like a creep in front of a bunch of kids, and then police are called, and that's never fun. But the library, it has books, it has internet access if you need to study, and it's open to everybody. You don't need to show identification. It's public. It's a great source. Support your local libraries, please.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Benrolinsblueprint podcast. I'm your host, Benrolins. I want them. Today's going to be an awesome episode. I have a great guy with me today. He's been through a lot in his life and was homeless at one point. And very incredible story. Sometimes I'm really inspired when I sit next to this guy or just be around him because he's an awesome personality. Very smart guy, even though sometimes he don't want to be identified as the smart guy. He just want to be identified as the guy. But he's humble too. And ladies and gentlemen, is no other person than the one and only James Embrey. Hey James, how you doing today?
Hello.
You good?
I'm great. How about you, Ben Rollins?
Man, I'm good. Like, how's life like today, man?
I mean, I woke up, got here. That's a plus.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You know, every time I bring people to Benrolinsblueprint, I just want to understand who they are and give my audience a sense of like their identity, what they represent, and some form of their character traits. So I want to understand who you really are, Mr. James Emery. Growing up as a kid, how was life like?
I'd say my life is pretty standard. I was born in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Grew up for my first early years in Richmond, Virginia. My dad started off as a Navy SEAL. We moved to Richmond when he transitioned to being a cop because he didn't like being overseas all the time when I was growing up. I think one of the turning points for him was he missed my first steps. He felt guilty, so he stopped being a Navy SEAL. Then some things happened with his parents, my grandparents, and we moved out to Lusby, Maryland, where I'm close to now. And he transitioned to being a instructor for the Secret Service. And I grew up from ages like 8 to 20-ish there. Just went through high school. I did a lot of music. I really liked playing brass instruments. I did jazz and classical, as well as marching band, which was really fun. We were a competitive marching band, so we had like fun drills that we did. We put on a show.
Oh, wow.
Originally, I really wanted to get into music as a career, but, doesn't really pay the bills. I'm not that lucky. I'm already lucky enough. I don't want to push it too much.
Man, you can't say music don't pay the bills. But before we get into music, I want to understand something. And growing up in that background of like a military, this guy, like your dad was a military guy.
Yes, sir.
So thanks. Tell him thanks for your service, by the way. And I want to understand something. Did your dad instill in you some principles? Because, growing up in that family, he always think like military guys are always like big on discipline and some other attributes. So were there some like principles or lessons that your dad instilled into you at a young age?
Yeah. So the main one is you're only as good as your word. So when you say something, mean it, or at least try to mean it. Like, it's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to be chronically wrong. Another thing he taught me is something I still use a lot today, and that's walking the fine, invisible line where you are relaxed enough where people will approach you, but not too relaxed where people will still respect what you say and your boundaries. Because, like, you have, managers or people that are just like your friend and you just don't do what they say because they're your buddy. They're just some guy. And then you have the other managers that are only by the book and don't care,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just don't tell them anything because like you never know if you might have messed up, you know.
Oh wow, that's good. I mean, those lessons are pretty profound. Sometimes you just got to be true to yourself, and like when you say something, you got to mean it, because most of the times people say some things and they don't really mean what they say. They're gonna say something today, tomorrow they're doing something else, and after tomorrow they're completely something else, and you don't really know who you're talking to when you're talking to them. So like meaning what you say is really profound because that's your character. And in leadership, when someone is watching you or listening to what you're saying, they're observing you to see your action. If your action actually matches your words, and sometimes your words, like your action speaks louder than your word, that a person can even hear what you're saying. So it's good to like back your words and action. So I really appreciate your dad for giving you the supreme wisdom. So I want to move on to something else. You mentioned music, and you said music is not pay, was not paying the. Yeah, you think music does not pay the bill. As a kid, we always have dream and aspiration. At what point did you get that notion in your mind that music does not pay the bill, and you're like, I can't continue with this dream or aspiration?
So I was relatively good at music. I went on to like state bands and stuff like that, and the level at these other musicians played were just astronomically beyond me. I couldn't even like. I knew enough where I knew they would just blow me out of the water no matter what I did. I'm just like, I can't compete with these. Like, these people have put way more effort and way more time and way more passion into it, and I don't think I have the good spot to follow up in that. And I knew I wouldn't be able to compete in there. And then like you see all these anecdotal stories on like YouTube, at the time MySpace, of bands just struggling to make it. And to my understanding, that's where a lot of drug culture comes in like these music scenes like rock, hip hop, stuff like that. Because like when you're trying your hardest and you're putting all your passion into something and nothing's ever paying out, it sucks. And some people need a little help to like feel less bad. And I didn't want to fall into that loop. I feel like I'd have a very addictive personality, so like I wanted to steer clear of that as well. But yeah, the chances of me actually being successful and making as much money and being as successful as I want to be would be slim to none in music. And it would be better for me to put my eggs into a different basket.
Oh, got you. Now understood. Now I understand where you're coming from. But I want to ask you. Just said something that you have an addictive personality. At what point did you make that conclusion?
So this was high school. I'd gotten big into video games, and instead of studying and like acing all my classes and putting my best foot forward for making it easier to get into college or something like that, I would spend a lot of my extra time playing video games, and I was very addicted. I would stay up late. I would forget homework. I'd pass tests because tests aren't that hard. You just have to remember what you read. But yeah, I wasted a lot of time doing that. I'm just like, man, I still struggle with that sometimes today. I'll get into like a mood where I just only do a certain thing for like a week instead of doing my actual job or my responsibilities.
Oh, got you. So you're going to high school, or with this thing, knowing that music does not pay or pay the bills, and when you're going to high school, what is your future aspiration at that point? What do you want to be?
So sometime in my junior or senior year, where through my AP physics classes, where we were doing like people would come and talk about their jobs. There was a guy who was a fire protection engineer, and I thought it sounded pretty cool. What they do is they work with like they're very generalist. They work with all sorts of different professions, and they just make sure things are like fire safe. So like they'll help with architecture, making sure materials are fireproof, making sure the structure itself can contain and control where fire goes. They do things with like fire extinguishers, protective equipment, all kinds of things. Fun fact with that guy's presentation, they taught us that fire is 97% predictable. So 3% of the time it just does something, and we just were like, well, it happened.
Oh wow, I'm kind of shocked by that because I don't really understand or know that fire is predictable. So how are you going to predict fire then?
So fire needs carbon, oxygen,
Yeah.
and heat. And if you follow the oxygen and the carbon with enough heat, you can see where it's going to go and how it's going to react. However, there's always chaos or entropy in the world. So sometimes, that 3% of the time, it'll just be like, I'm going to go in a different direction.
Oh, got you. So, after high school, you graduated from high school, I'm gonna say, and what was your next step after that? Were you like, hey, I gotta go to college to go become a fire extinguisher engineer? Like, what was your next move?
That was the plan. I took a year off because, like, I guess I just went into like a little depressive fit. So I took a gap year. Don't recommend it, by the way. Don't do a gap year. It's a scam.
Why were you depressed, by the way?
Just the end of high school, the end of like who I was, and you learn a lot about yourself, and you realize that who you were before isn't close to who you are now, and it was just weird thinking about it. So like I just like threw myself into like a daze, right? And that's where the gap year came from.
Oh, got you. So after the gap year, what was your next move?
After that, I was just applying to random things. I had applied to college.
Yeah.
I believe I got accepted. I don't remember. It's been 10 years. It's been too long.
Oh, got you.
But instead, I went to Arizona for an inbound call center job at a banking company where you would just like direct the phone traffic. And when I get out there, I drive my, '06 Chrysler Town and Country. It's like a minivan with me and my cat. Drive it across the country. I spend all of my money trying to get there. And when I get there, their downsides are like, hey, you don't actually have a job anymore. We can't have you come in. So at that point, it's just me without enough money to get home. My pride making me unable to call my parents and be like, yeah, it's not going well. Help me get home. I was too embarrassed. So it was just me, my cat, and my van in the Arizona heat. Luckily, it was the fall, so it wasn't too bad.
Oh, wow. First of all, you said something that I want to come back to. But before I come back to that, I want to ask you, why were you prideful? Why were you so boastful and you did not want to like contact your parents to ask for help? Being stranded in a place where you did not grow up and you don't know anybody.
I can't really put my finger on it. I just couldn't. I was too young and too dumb. Like, I didn't have anything to my name. I spent all of my money on this one thing instead of going to college, right?
Oh.
And that's not a good look when my first big boy decision burns in flames. And I also didn't want them to worry because I know part of them would blame themselves, and it's my own fault. I didn't make any plans. I didn't make any backups. I didn't have any contingency. So, like, ultimately, it was my fault. And I knew my parents would blame themselves. They love me. They want the best for me. But, like, I needed to fail, I guess.
Yeah, you needed to fail. But when you got there and they told you you don't have a job anymore, what were you thinking?
Oh man, how am I going to eat? Was my first thought. Not just me, but also my cat, because my cat needs to eat too. I brought her out there. She's still with me. Her name's Bagel. I'll show you a picture later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first thought, and my other thought was like, well, if I'm going to eat, I'm going to need money. So I had to start looking for a job. So for 2-3 weeks, I was without a job and without a home.
So how are you eating?
So most bakeries, after the end of their shift, throw away perfectly good breads and goods. And so I would go to dumpsters, pick out the least nasty looking breads.
Oh my God.
And eat.
Oh wow. That was, man, you've been through a lot. I'm sorry for that experience, by the way.
Oh, it's all good.
So how long were you homeless before finally getting a job?
So I got a job within 3 weeks as a seasonal associate at Amazon, but because I had no rent history and I had no money, and and my last location was Maryland.
Yeah.
No apartment would take me without a huge amount of deposit, security deposit. So I needed the first month's rent, and deposit, and then a pet deposit, which was also the first month's rent.
Wow.
And that was so anyone would take me. And so it took me like 2.5 to 3 months of pay before I was able to afford that. And I got my first apartment in like January of 2015.
2015. So you want to tell me for 3 months you were living on like
So,
bread?
so for a couple weeks, I was living on bread. When I got my first job, they gave you an ADP Align card, which they would deposit your money into. And at the time, well, I mean, Amazon's like this now, but at the time, they were paying weekly for the seasonal associates. So I was getting paid every week with that. So once I like got the job and got my first week of pay, I was able to feed my cat better. One, because like they were eating things they shouldn't be eating. Like cats are carnivores; they need meat. And then I was also able to feed myself after that as well.
Oh wow, man! Your story, by the way, is kind of incredible. I mean, I've never been homeless before, so I don't really know the experience you were going through back then.
Strangely liberating.
Why liberating?
What responsibilities do you have? You don't have to pay rent. You don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to put up appearances for anyone. It's just you.
Really?
You don't have to worry about anything. It's liberating.
So it's liberating to be homeless and you don't have a roof over your head?
Yeah.
Man, I've never had anyone saying that.
So, of course, it's a struggle. Like, it's obviously a struggle. Like, you don't have a place you can be. Most places will just kick you out for being on private property, but you don't have any expectations. You don't have any responsibilities. You don't have bills. Everything is yours. You don't owe anything to anyone. And in that mindset, it's liberating.
So where were you parking your car to sleep?
For the most part, gas stations originally, and then when I worked at Amazon, they actually have a auxiliary parking lot nearby, and I would just park and sleep there.
And then like how do you get your showers too?
So originally, I would just go to sinks and like freshen up as much as I could. The famous sink shower. Yeah, I did that for a while.
Wow.
The hardest place was after a while, you couldn't keep going to the same place because they knew what you're doing. They're like, hey, get out of here, you bum. So the friendliest place for homeless people is a public library. It is the only place in America where you can be and you're not expected to pay anything. And you can sit down. Like, you can't sit down in parks because police will kick you out. Or you'll look like a creep in front of a bunch of kids, and then police are called, and that's never fun. But the library, it has books, it has internet access if you need to study, and it's open to everybody. You don't need to show identification. It's public. It's a great source. Support your local libraries, please.
So what you were going to the library most of your time? Is that what you're saying?
For my free time, yeah, I went to the library a lot.
And what were you doing? Reading?
I would just like read, hang out, just try to not die in the heat.
Got you, man. I'm getting some tips, so in case I'm homeless. You never know. Life is so unpredictable. I might be going to the library.
Reach out to your friends first. If are you going through something, Ben? Do you need help? I'm here for you.
Okay, man. I got you. Anyway, let's move on. So you get your first job in Amazon, and then a few months after, you finally find a place to live in.
Yes.
So when you find a place to live in, how was that feeling?
It just having a sense of home was refreshing. So it was great. I felt like I accomplished something, but it was also like learning to cope with a big commitment because it's a lot of money to be in a place to live for some reason.
Yeah. So you're just used to being a free man. You don't got to worry about like rent.
Yeah, now I have electricity. Now I have utilities. Now I have an apartment. Now I have insurance. It was just, I went from having to pay nothing to having to pay everything.
Oh man! So like after feeling like having the sense of accomplishing something, like you said earlier on, what was your next move? Like, what were you thinking that I'm going to do this next in order to like have a major achievement in my life?
So my first thought was, all right, let's coast. I felt like I accomplished something. Like, okay, I'm good for now. But I realized like I can't just live off of that, and I wanted to make more with my girlfriend, now wife. So I brought her out there. I didn't really have a direction. I just kept going and seeing where it would take me.
Oh, so you had a girlfriend before moving to Arizona. So you brought your girlfriend to Arizona.
Yeah, my high school sweetheart.
Your high school
We
sweetheart.
were dating for, hold on, 4 or 5 years at that point we were in dating.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I was dating her in my sophomore year of high school. And when I got my first place, it was 2015. 5 to 6 years.
Did she know you were homeless?
Yes.
So you could call your sweetheart, but you could not call your parents. This guy. Why did you do that? Why did you inform your sweetheart, but you cannot inform your parents?
So, for some reason, with her, I could let go of my ego. I could let go of my sense of self, and I could just be, 100% true. I don't have any pretense to put up. I was pretty convinced she loved me at the time. So, I was like, okay, I can let go of my ego.
Yeah.
I can be the best person. So, yeah, that's basically why. Just didn't have an ego.
So in other words, you're telling me that your wife produces the best James Embrey. Oh wow, that's good. That's a really good thing.
Don't let her know.
That's a good thing. Most times we are not lucky, or not everyone is opportune or lucky to get married to their high school sweetheart. Some people don't even have a high school sweetheart. So you getting married to your high school sweetheart is something pretty impressive. And since you mentioned that, I want to come back now to how did you know that she's the one? And back then, did you even know anything about love, or you were already an expert at a young age?
It's a hard question.
Take your time.
I didn't really know until after the homeless event. I'm like, man, she's with a bum. She's with a 100% bona fide bum. But love is a lot of things. For me, it is being able to lose your ego. For me, it's being able to just let go of who you thought you were and become who you are.
Oh, that's pretty profound, because I believe if you can reveal your true self to the person who you feel like, or the person you feel at ease talking to, I think at some point you can figure out probably she's the one. But there's a lot of probability, so you can't really say, oh, you're certain, because sometimes you might be certain, and that certainty might end up being the wrong certainty, and you might be wrong 100% of the times. So sometimes love, I can say it like this: no one was figured love out. But from my own definition of love, like I said on previous episodes, love is a decision to commit and meet another person's needs for the rest of your life and expecting nothing from them. So being at a young age and somewhat knowing that, oh, this might work out. Oh, I love her, and I'm willing to reveal my true self, and without feeling that she's going to judge me or say something that will affect me in a negative sense, kind of make you, unique in some sense, because at that young age, not everyone is thinking about the future. People are just thinking about, hey, fun, now, that's it. Move on to the next one. So to have a commitment at that young age, man, you're a master at your game. So let's move on. You bring your wife down to to Arizona. What was your next plan? Because now you have responsibilities. You're not thinking only about yourself. Like you said, you were thinking about your car too. But now you have another human being that you're responsible for. So you're thinking about yourself and your wife. What was your next move? As a man, you're sitting down, you're like, hey, I'm bringing my... Was she your girlfriend or your wife back
She's
then?
my girlfriend.
Oh, she was your girlfriend. So you're bringing your girlfriend, what was going through your mind? What are you going to do? What do you got to... how do you got to step up your game in order to maintain and feed two human beings and a cat?
So I am a product of my stresses in the present. So who I am going to be tomorrow depends on what complications I'm feeling now. So bringing her forced me to realize, hey, I need more stuff. So it just encouraged me to work harder. And through that, it showed through work. And they said, hey, you're doing good. You want to be a seasonal PA, which is kind of like a little leader for just peak season. And yeah, I did really well as a seasonal PA at Amazon. And from there, I just kept working hard. I tried to become an actual PA. It didn't work out. So I lost my offer to other more talented individuals or more people who had been paying their dues a little longer than I had because I was, I was young. I just got there. There were people that were older and been working there longer than me. That Amazon building that is Phoenix 6 had been there for a long time. It's one of the oldest buildings in NA.
Oh wow.
So there was a lot of old talent there. So I just started applying to everything because I was upset that I didn't get it because I was a selfish kid. I wanted stuff for me, and I didn't think about and that's how I ended up at my next part of my career, Central Flow. I just applied there. For some reason, they called me back. So to give a little context, I didn't know anything about resume building. I didn't know anything about like how to make myself look professional. So my resume, do you have Notepad on your computer?
Yeah.
That's what I sent my resume on. Just a little notepad, just a text file, just a .txt.
Oh wow.
That was my resume. There was no formatting. It was just a list of stuff I did, my name and my address, and that was my resume. I might still have it. I'll have to look for it, but it was abysmal. It was pathetic.
Wow, man.
Use Google Docs templates or any templates. They have so many great resume builders now. Don't send it in a notepad.
Oh, get you. But I'm going to come back. I'm going to come to you working at Amazon. But there's something that just popped up in my mind. Would you say that being homeless taught you a lot about yourself?
It did teach me a lot about myself, but it taught me a lot about myself through the struggles I saw other people going through.
Can you elaborate on that?
I wasn't the only one struggling. You see other people struggling. You see people in similar situations, get kicked out of places just for, standing there. You see people get chased away. I got a jaywalking ticket technically because I was just trying to walk away from a place where I knew I was going to get kicked out from. But it was just learning to understand the struggles of others and be more accepting. I was still very bitter at the time. I didn't really fully process it till about 3 years later. But at the time, it made me angrier. It made me more upset. It made me more of a short fuse. But eventually, I processed it to the point where I understood that, hey, these people, yeah, sure, some of it's their fault, but a lot of it's not. Was it my fault I became homeless? Of course. But there was a lot of other extenuating circumstances that happened on it to me too. I'm not the only one that can fall into that pit hole. And it was just understanding that I am the exact same as everybody else. We're just a product of things happening around us. Everyone's just trying to make it by.
Got you. If there's one thing I can applaud you for is taking responsibility. I mean, because sometimes when people go through some challenges or tough situation in their life, all they do is they blame, they start pointing fingers at one another without even taking time to do self-reflection. You've said several times that you felt responsible in some sense, like, hey, you made the wrong decision, and you do not want to call your dad and mom for that. Even though I will, if I were in your shoes, I'm going to call to just let them know. But what you did was extremely at the highest mental attitude, because sitting back and living on the street and living in your car, not know what you're gonna eat the next day, and just hungry and stuff like that, it makes you kind of go through the extremes of life, hard moments, hard times, and it's true. It's during those hard times that you really get a revelation about who you truly are. Because not everyone is opportune to go through those moments in their life. So when you're when you're going through that moment, you don't really appreciate that because it's kind of tough, and you're not going to wish anybody to go through the same experience. But the moment you get out of that, you realize oh, now I feel I kind of understood why I went through that experience in the first place. Because now that experience have made me a tougher human being, a more experienced person, and know how to sympathize and have empathy for others. Because you now know that, even though some people are homeless, it's not their fault. Like some people sitting down or from the outside who have never gone through that experience, when they see someone homeless, they just judge. You know, like, hey, that guy, that lady, she's useless in some sense. She don't really know what she's doing. How can she be on the street? And most of the times we attribute someone homeless with drugs without really knowing that it's not everybody who is homeless that takes drugs. And that's kind of like, yes, that's the kind of society we live in. Everyone has their opinion, and they feel like the opinion is so important that no one else's opinion matters. So I really appreciate you for giving us the perspective. And man, being responsible is really a hard thing, especially today, because everybody, or most of the times, people just want to be, oh, I'm perfect, but this guy is not. I'm perfect, but this lady is not. And when you live your life that way, you don't really know what's your next move, because now you're just like limiting yourself by just judging people without really taking time to do some self-reflection, understanding your potential. Because without knowing your potential, how are you going to impact the world? You cannot. And man, I wouldn't wish that for anybody, but I can just applaud you for for taking responsibility and building your mindset to the level where it is today. Because when you live that experience, you just know like there's nothing that can come your way that you cannot overcome. Because what is the worst thing that can happen to you at this point? Being homeless. And if you're homeless, you already have the resume that I can handle that thing. Pretty awesome. So I thank you for giving us the insight. Let's move now to Amazon. So you're homeless, you finally succeed to get a seasonal position in Amazon, and then save up, get a house. After getting a house, you got an opportunity to get a seasonal position as a PA, process assistant. So you got a seasonal position as a process assistant, and then you're trying to apply to become like a full-time process assistant, but you can't get it. And later, what happened?
Later, I was just upset. I was still, in my angry phase because, I was homeless and I hadn't processed everything through it yet emotionally. So, like, everything was going outward. And I just started applying to everything under the sun. So, in case, for people who don't work at Amazon, the Amazon internal website for jobs tells you can only have 3 open at a time.
Yeah.
I found out that was a lie. I had like 20 open applications. 20. And Central Flow is the one who called back to my terrible, terrible resume. And I understand why no one else replied now looking back. And it's always a fun thing to remember. I went through a series of interviews through Central Flow, and by luck and hard work, I got accepted, and I moved to an office job at Central Flow. And there I learned through osmosis a lot about leadership, because at Central Flow, you're no longer talking to area managers, the low-level managers. You're talking to the operations managers, the level 6s. They're responsible for an entire shift. They have a lot of insight that most people in Amazon are not privy to. And being able to see how each 6 was very different in how they operated, and seeing all those different flavors and styles of leadership really helped me understand what it meant for me to be a leader later on.
Oh, got you. So when you got to that position as a flow lead, what were you thinking? I haven't gone through the experience of being homeless, and now you finally get like a job where you're talking to people who are, I'm going to say, have some leadership experience and kind of understand how leadership works. And you're talking to those people like, oh, something might be going through your mind like, hey, I've probably made it for me to be homeless, and then now I'm in this position where I'm communicating with these guys. It put me in a different level now. So at that point, what were you thinking? What was your next move? Like, what was your aspiration at that point?
Honestly, didn't really have any aspirations, but like, I find it boring to sit still. So I just kept pushing forward, because why not? There's nothing better to do. And from there, I just kept pushing. I did projects. I made some standard work processes. I made some improvements. I launched a brand new version of Central Flow called Central Inbound Flow. I set SOP, standard operating procedures, for that function. I helped run the pitch meetings where we would pitch to sites to join the program and come under our umbrella. And I launched the standard work on how they run Inbound Flow.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's really great. I mean, to be in a situation where you have, I'm going to say, a stable job, and you're not only thinking about, oh, I'm comfortable now. You're thinking about, how can I move forward to the next level? How can I just move and improve myself in it and let this thing just create an impact around me? That's really good. You know, sometimes people don't really think like that. They're just thinking like, hey, I'm comfortable now. I finally got a job. I was homeless. Where I am is better than where I was previously. So why should I bother? So being in that position and thinking like, hey, I can move forward. I can do something with my life. I can improve myself. Now I'm not thinking only about myself. I'm thinking about my girlfriend. And probably I want to engage. I want to get married to her in the future. So you got to start thinking about how much does a wedding ring cost? How much does a wedding cost? So you start thinking about some different responsibility and like, hey, this current salary or this current income is not going to sustain the two of us. So I got to improve myself. And the way you went about it was pretty impressive by doing projects. Because when you do projects, you kind of showcase your abilities and your talent. And that's really impressive. And like working together with a team, because I'm going to believe that when you're doing a project, you're not doing it by yourself. You got to collaborate. You got to do some partnerships along the way in order to make sure it's effective and it's worth doing. Because in order for you to collaborate with someone, the person got to see in you that you really believe in what you're talking about and really believe in the process. So I really applaud you for like taking your time to do some projects to improve not only yourself but improve other people's experience. That's pretty awesome. So you finally do the projects and stuff like that. And what was your next stuff after that? What happened?
Well, since I had been putting forth the effort, I wanted to move up. I wanted more money for the extra effort I'm putting in.
Yeah.
Which is, I believe, a reasonable expectation. You put in more effort, you want more stuff to come back to you.
Yeah.
So I was trying to get promoted to the next step up, which is a team lead. But my wife at the time, we eloped at some point in there. We used a family ring, so like I got the ring from my great grandfather. I proposed to her with that, and that was overly casual. I kind of just threw it at her with some Chinese takeout we got that day. I'm a very casual individual. We eloped, and we were expecting. So in December of 2019, I had a child, a son, also James, and I was on paternity leave for a while. That was one of the worst experiences of my, not the actual leave, but like coming back from the leave was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Why?
So the leave team entirely mishandled my case. So because I had my child in the middle of like the Christmas and holiday seasons, everyone was on leave. So my what are they called? The person who handles my leave, my case manager, was on vacation, understandably, and she left a message to who to contact up, the next guy up, her manager. And funny enough, he was also on vacation.
Wow.
And neither one of them were going to be back by the deadline that I needed to say, hey, I had my kid, because my kid came late, so I wasn't able to report it. So they never actually gave me my time. So I was like negative, was like 250 to 300 hours of UPT. And so for 6 months, I was just negative hours, and I had no idea if I was going to be able to keep badging in.
Oh, wow.
Until one day, I was pulled into the HR office with my manager, like, do you know how negative you are? I'm like, yes, I'm very well aware. They were asking me what happened. And I was like, hey, I've been trying to get in contact with them to fix my case and show that I had been putting forth the effort. And they're like, do they have proof? I'm like, yeah. And I showed them my phone. And for every day for 6 months, I was calling the same number to no avail. No one called me back. No one picked up. I'm just like, I don't know what else I was supposed to do. I was following my instructions. I'm frustrated too, because apparently the reason why they called me in the office is regional HR was asking about me and they wanted me to be turned that day. And a week later, everything returned back to normal. I have no idea what happened. I'm assuming the person never came back from leave, and her manager also never came back from leave. So I think I was just left in limbo, especially because the leave team was being absolutely bombarded by COVID cases because COVID was just starting to be a thing when I got back. When I got back around like February 2020.
Wow. So I want to come back to you because
Sorry, I skipped around there.
You've been like you were homeless, and now you're on the verge of losing your job. Like, what's your process thought like?
So at that point, because I felt more confident in myself and I let go a lot of my pride, I told my parents like, "Hey, I might need help coming home. Here's what's happening." And so I was building up my resume and getting some lessons done because my fallback was just to go work with my dad. I was just going to go join the Secret Service, just be an agent and just work through that and just like give up my aspirations that I had put forward in Amazon and just start fresh. While depressing, I didn't really have another option.
Wow.
And you just kind of have to make do sometimes.
Wow, man. At least I appreciate you for like bracing yourself and having some self-confidence to actually call your dad until you told him that, hey, things might go south. I might come back home. And I mean, sometimes it takes like some amount of humility to put yourself together and know that sometimes things might not work out. And if you have someone who you can fall back on, that's a good option. But the thing is, you don't always got to say, oh, I have this person, so I can do anything. I have like a plan B. You got to be a man, and you got to take responsibility for yourself and for your own future. Because no matter what happens, your dad is never going to like project your future that you really deserve on you. You have to be the sole proprietor and the captain of your own ship. And you know that, hey, at the end of the day, it's what I think and it's what I'm going to do, the effort I'm going to put in, and the actions I'm going to take that will reflect how I'm going to live tomorrow. Because if you're just lazy, mind you, you might be lazy and thinking, oh, I'm comfortable, I have a job now. You never know what might happen tomorrow. So it's always good, no matter if you have a job, try to find something that you can improve. Try to find a different area. You don't always got to rely on your job because your job might be gone tomorrow. Like, you got to find something that you improving yourself in, like learn something, find a trade, like a side hustle or anything, and improve yourself in that area because you never know what might happen. With the age of AI, man, most jobs are going to be replaced, but that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because now you got to improve yourself in different areas that you know that, hey, AI might be so smart in this area, but when it comes to this, it's not. But how are you going to figure that thing out? You got to take some time and learn and improve yourself because without improving yourself, you're just going to be on a hook. And the moment things happen, that a drastic change, boom, you just catch you off guard. And when you're prepared, you know that things might go left, things might go east, west, south. At any point, I'm ready. And it takes some certain level of preparedness to know that. And sometimes we don't really appreciate change. Change comes and change goes. It's just like season. So winter is going to come, no matter what you say or do. Summer is going to come. Spring is going to come. You cannot change that. But most of the times, people just sit down. When the change comes, they complain. They whine and complain. The fact that you complain does not mean change is not going to come. And just being there and bracing yourself and knowing that it's going to just be for a while. And after this, I'm going to go to the next level. And just enjoy the moment. No matter what you go through in life, know that you're not alone. People are going through more worse experience than what you're going through. And when you know that, you're going to say, oh, you're going to relax and calm down a little bit. Not calming down, being comfortable and saying, oh, the fact that I'm not alone means I can just sit down and just remain in the same predicament. You got to think about, hey, I'm not alone, but hell no. I got to improve myself. I got to take my game to the next level. What did I do wrong? Did I make a bad decision? What can I do to make a right decision? And you start learning from there. Improving yourself is the most important thing, and investing in yourself, that's the most important thing you can ever do for your life. And just doing that and embracing change. I've noticed one thing. People who don't like change always complain about change when it comes. But people who are ready for change, when change comes, they adapt and they know what to do. And some people are already they already plan ahead. They know, they work on patterns and knowing that, hey, this might happen. And if this happens, this is what I'm gonna do. So take James' story as something that resonates with you, because you might not be in the position where you're homeless right now. But hearing some insight from him kind of make you understand that, hey, it's a lot to be homeless and you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So try to always make the right decision. You are not going to make the right decision 100% of the time. You might make 1% right decision. But even though you make 1%, try to ask yourself, how can I improve to make 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%? It's a gradual process, but you got to spend some time to improve yourself and know that, hey, I might not be better today, but tomorrow I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna be better. That's how life is. And when you take it a day at a time, you're gonna improve drastically. This guy's story, he was homeless for a while, and he changed his life from being homeless to finally getting the job. Getting a job, trying to showcase his talent and ability to know, let his superiors know that, hey, I'm here. I might have been through some worse experiences, but I have more to offer in a workplace, in a work environment. And he did just that. So coming back to you, Mr. James Embrey. So you finally got promoted to the team lead. And fortunately for you, you were not fired. And now you're thinking, hey, I didn't get fired. What is my next move going to be?
So at the time, my current stress points were I worked, and then as soon as I got home, I worked by taking care of the baby because my wife needed a break. Mm-hmm. So my next step was either finding more support, or it was basically finding more support because we'd mathed it out. And even if she had kept working, if we paid for basically like a babysitter or a daycare, we would actually be making a net profit of like $5, which doesn't include wear and tear on the car. So we had her stay home, but like she's a person, she needs a break too.
Yeah.
So like I'd work and then I'd come home, I'd take care of the baby as best as I could.
Yeah.
I'd crash, and it was not sustainable. So I was looking outward. I was looking to promote and move closer back to where I came from, back here in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And I applied to a bunch of places. I got interviews for some delivery stations and some GSF, which is Global Specialty Fulfillment Centers in Florida. I don't know why they contacted me, but they did. Mm-hmm. And I got inclined on all of them, but I never got any job offers. Mm-hmm. So I was recently moved from the West Coast as a team lead to the East Coast. And I jokingly told one of the seniors at BWI2, hey, got a job opening, let me know. Mm-hmm. And they asked, we do. All right, have you interviewed? I'm like, yes. They're like, were you inclined? I said, yes. They're like, oh, okay. The next day or the day after, I look at my email and I have a job offer in my work docs or in my docs for Amazon. Mm-hmm. And that was an interesting transition. So Central Flow, my current bosses, mm-hmm. didn't know this was happening because they didn't see me apply to BWI2. Uh-huh. But I got an offer letter. So when I clicked accept, an email went out to both BWI2 and my current bosses. Mm-hmm. And because I'd already had a run-in with having a low amount of time, mm-hmm. I didn't want to lose more time. And so there was an argument between my current bosses and my future bosses of when I was allowed to leave. So what ended up happening was I played it safe and I stayed out as late as I could. And in 3 days, I packed up my things and moved from Phoenix, Arizona to Baltimore, Maryland. And that was that was a scary time because I basically stayed awake for like 72 hours driving across the country. I had to pack my things. I had to it was less packing my things and more getting it into the U-Haul and then driving the U-Haul. I think it's 1,300 miles across the states so I could unpack and then immediately go to manager training at BWI2. And I wish lesson I learned from that was like, I need to be more assertive with, hey, I'm a person. I need this time to go do this. I was too afraid to like escalate anywhere for fear of losing my job. So I just kind of sat there and suffered silently as I worked all the way through moving out. And I was actually so afraid of being fired when I was moving across. It was one of my work days. So I clocked in and reached out and they're like, oh yeah, you can start working. And then someone else was just like, what are you doing? You're moving. And then kicked me off. So I was in a hotel room running Central Flow on my move to BWI2 for a night. And that was a fun time.
Wow, man, that's incredible. Just being scared. So were you scared of that if you get fired, you're going to be homeless again? What's your greatest fear at that point?
My greatest fear at that point, because I was in the process of moving, I wasn't afraid of being homeless. I would just move in with my parents, and that would be a temporary solution, not a permanent one, but one that would be manageable. I was mostly worried about not being able to create a future for my son. So right now, at the forefront of my head is I need to make sure my son doesn't die. My son stays alive and has a successful career, or has a chance at a career or anything. So my first thought was I need to make sure that my wife and my son were taken care of. Luckily, I had the bases covered with both my family was out here and her family was out here, so we had options if need be. But the process of getting another job would be a headache, and I would not have a definite timeline. So it'd be just like a state of limbo, which I didn't want to be in. And like I said before, it was liberating at the time of being homeless, but like being stuck in limbo is never fun.
Wow, man. Damn, your story is kind of incredible. I've not heard anything like that before, but I appreciate you for finally giving us the opportunity to share your story with the rest of our audience. Thank you very much. And you're moving to Maryland. When you got to Maryland, what happened?
I got to Maryland. I took a 6-hour nap, and then I went to BWI2 to start my manager training. So when you become a manager internally, you have to go through like 2 weeks of like classes. I found out later that I could have done this at home, but like my email said I had to be at the site, so I went to the site to go do the training. And from there, it was the middle of peak, so they couldn't really put me anywhere. So I sat in the flow room with some of the ops managers while I was learning BWI. While I was learning to be a manager. It was a weird position because I was trying to find a place where I was useful, but also wasn't resented. Because I was just some guy that came from Central Flow, which a lot of sites don't have, at the site level, don't have a good connotation of. Like, they don't think very much of Central Flow. We do a lot, but because there is a wide variance in the level of service Flow Leads provides, it causes a lot of like bad blood and misconceptions. So it was hard to balance knowing a lot technically, but also being new to being a leader, and coming across as helpful, but not like trying to butt in. Because there are a lot of managers, especially when I got there, that were very, very proud of what they do, which they should be. It's hard work. So like offering help as the new guy, some of them felt a certain way of the new guy being like, oh, hey, I can help you with this when they don't know anything about me. I'm just some guy that came from an office. That's all they know about me. So like it can be threatening. I can understand.
So you're coming from an office, like some of them were saying, and now you're in the fulfillment center.
Yep, back in the FC.
Yeah. What was it? What was like the actual shock coming back to, because you worked in the FC before, right? As a seasonal. So when you got there, like you're responsible for these people, and you were one of them before. So what was running through your mind, and what was some of the leadership attributes that you knew that, oh, I possess this, and I'm going to actually use this to make sure I create a good work environment for these A's?
So being at Amazon for as long as I had seen people become managers over their friends or PAs over their friends, and it's very hard. So I was fortunate in the fact that nobody knew me. So my initial thought was, hey, I really won't tell anybody about like my past. I'm just their manager, and that's all they really need to know. As long as I do what's best by them and what's best for the business, they usually listen, and they usually did. There was a few times where what I saw did not align with what the associates saw, and that only escalated like once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work environment. Things happen sometimes. Things might not go as planned. It might go south. So it's life, and we just got to like redirect course and make sure we're moving towards the right direction. So yeah, now you're manager in a fulfillment center, and were you thinking, hey, I got to climb the ladder as high as I can climb, or I'm just like, now I'm in Maryland, I'm close to family, things are kind of comfortable now. I just got to chill and relax. Everything is gonna be good.
I mean, you know me. I don't like to sit still, so like I wanted to push forward as far as I could, and I made what connections I could. I put my best foot forward, and because it was COVID times, there was a lot of coverage. So I ended up covering like 3 different departments by myself for a while as a new manager. So that helped me puff up my image a lot, because the hardest thing about working the FC is they care a lot about tenure. So at Central Flow, nobody cared how long you worked at Amazon. They didn't care, like, okay, cool. But what about this metric? Or like, what are you doing about this? At the FCs, they really care about your tenure. Like, oh, wow, you've been at Amazon for 5-6 years. You must know a lot. Or they'd make other general assumptions about you. And that was definitely a shock. But the point I'm trying to get at is perception really, really matters at the FC level.
Yeah.
You could be a fantastic manager, and if you aren't perceived that way, you will forever be garbage until someone changes everyone else's perception. Yeah, and that's probably the most frustrating part is you can't change your perception on your own. You need someone else to change it for you.
Yeah, and that's true.
The lack of reliance on yourself is very frustrating, and it's I don't even know like how you would tackle that kind of problem. And so just making sure my perception stayed as clean as possible was very important to me.
Yeah.
And that worked for a while.
Well, I mean that's a good one, and that's true though, because sometimes if like your superior have a wrong perception about you, that's what's gonna go around, and the next moment you realize that, oh, everyone perceives you that way, and you can't really do nothing to. It's so tough for you to change it. You have to have someone else, like another superior, that says see something different. I'm like, hey, this guy is an interesting guy. He got talent and skills, and he's really smart too. So yeah, I appreciate you for giving that insight, and it's really valuable. But now I wanted to ask you, you left Flow, Arizona, and you come to Maryland. Now you're a manager at the fulfillment center. What were some of the challenges you face?
One of the first ones was pay. So going from hourly to salary means I no longer got overtime. And I took just off the base pay like a $20,000 cut for the year, and that was not fun. It is not ideal, one would say. Other challenges was when you go from hourly to salary, you get a lot more responsibilities. One of them is holding associates accountable. So like feedback, performance, stuff like that. Breaking bad news to associates up to termination was definitely a little of a hill, and it took me a while before I kind of like numbed to it, because for a long time I believed I still believe this to an extent. Everyone can be successful at Amazon. It's a huge company. There's a spot for everybody. And because I held that value so dearly, every time someone was termed or got a write-up, I blamed myself more than the actual person. So for me, it was learning to understand that I can't help everyone. I can't save everyone. And that a lot of people do things to themselves. And all I can do is my best to like give help forwards and make sure people are very aware of where they stand. But yeah, holding people accountable and learning to deliver bad news is the biggest change for me.
Oh wow, that's true. You know, not everyone is really strong to tell someone, hey, this is the last day for you, or you're losing your job and stuff like that. It's really hard. It takes some level of mental attitude to really get to that point where you're like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can handle this. Everyone struggle when it comes to that. So I really appreciate you for giving us that insight. So you had some few challenges, some hiccups here and there. But what if I were to ask you, which leadership principle did you really identify yourself with? What are you going to tell me?
Oh, at that time?
Yeah.
Deep diving. I was great at finding the root cause of issues. So one thing you learn at Central Flow is typically it is not associates causing an issue with the system. If you're seeing an issue, you have up to like 70 associates under you. If you're seeing an issue, you're not just seeing one person. It is systemic. There is something that is making people not do things correctly or making things askew, or there's some level of lack of understanding. So deep diving would be my leadership principle for the first several years, or for the first couple years of my manager life, because I would like to figure out, well, why is it happening? What's causing singles to not keep up, or like what's causing the problem solve bucket to rise so much? Like, why do we have inventory in odd locations just like building up everywhere? And it was just like trying to figure out, well, what caused that, and just like breaking it down from there.
Got you. So which leadership principle are you going to identify yourself with now?
That's a good question. It is between R write a lot and bias for action. So I am a very hands-on leader, less so now because I don't really know the actual process in my new role as a transportation manager, but I know how to manage it. But R write a lot I think is really important. One, it helps build trust, and two, I'm at a level now where I make less decisions, so it matters more that I'm right now, because I don't have other decisions to make up for a mistake. I have to be right. I can't just make a decision and it has to work. I like at this point, like I have a lot of safety on the line for me personally. Sometimes you just have to make a decision, whether someone stays or where someone goes, or if you're going to override this feature. Being right a lot is super important, and it makes everything else just go so much smoother.
Wow. I mean, thank you very much for giving us your valuable insight today. It's been an awesome episode. Like, I've been sitting here just talking to myself. I'm like, wow, this guy is truly brilliant, and he's been through a lot. So I applaud you for coming to our platform and giving us your insight today. So if there was one advice that you could give your younger self, what would it be?
I don't really know, because if I was to go back, I'd probably do it all over again. It was rough, but it taught me a lot of lessons. And I don't know if I would be the same person if I skipped any of it. So I value the hard times that I went through. I value the failures I went through. I value the successes I went through too. But if I was to change any of it, I don't know if I would be who I am today. And I'm relatively happy with who I am today. And I'm going to be happy with who I am tomorrow when I change even more. I guess the advice would be just learn to be more okay with change, and learn to accept things earlier. It took me a long time to come to terms with the situation he went through being homeless. It took me a long time to come to like reconcile with mistakes I made in like high school and in my career, even like some of the awful things that I had said when I was younger. Took me a long time to process and understand where I was wrong and process what I felt then versus what I felt now. And just I would just recommend for myself to really accept.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for saying that. And if someone's watching now or listening to this podcast episode that is going through similar challenge, like they're homeless and going through some tough moments in their life, what are you going to tell that person?
Just keep pushing. You'll get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good one. But at least, come on, man.
There isn't great advice. Everyone's like hardship is unique. The only like general advice you can give is to just keep trying to push forward. Not everything works out, and understanding that will help you come to terms with acceptance. But not everything works out. But that doesn't mean you can give up. Giving up is not an option.
Oh,
you only have this. This is all you have. So you can't just give up. That's boring.
Yeah. Giving up is not an option, guys. You got to brace yourself and keep moving forward. No matter the challenge or the situation you find yourself in, you're definitely going to see a successful outcome. If you keep pushing, keep striving for the better and for the best, you're going to definitely get to the future you deserve. Mr. James Embrey, is there anything you want to say before we end this episode today? It's been an awesome one, by the way.
Yeah, I just want to shout out my friend's podcast, Dark Reunion, and Jesse. You can follow them on Instagram. If you go and watch Kyle's episode, he has the links. I'm not good with social media. I swore off that 5-10 years ago. So I'm not great with plugging social medias, but Dark Reunion and Jesse. Great podcast. Friends of mine. I want to support what they do, and I want to support Ben here.
Oh yeah, definitely check it out. And thank you very much for coming in today. By the way, thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I appreciate you for coming. It's been a blessed one.
The pleasure's all mine.
Thank you very much. And hey, guys. There you have it. Today's episode has been an awesome one. We've learned a lot from James' experience. He's been through a lot, and boy, oh boy, I've been inspired today. I hope you've been too. So please do us a favor. Like, share, and subscribe. Please share this episode with your loved ones, friends, and everybody you really care about. Let them hear this incredible story and learn something from James's story, because it's an awesome one. I really appreciate you. Thank you for everything you do, and see you in the next episode. Make sure you don't just listen to this, but you actually reflect and do something practical with your life. Thank you. Benrolinsblueprint comes to an end. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye.